Hey guys, I'm Reinhardt, the Guitar Maniac, and welcome to another episode of Shitty Guitar Challenge. And today we are looking at the Archtop guitar from unknown brand, and I can just make a wild guess that this was probably made in Germany or even in East Germany somewhere in the 50s or maybe in the 60s. Well, I tried a couple of those guitars and well, there were a couple with a pretty awesome sound that I would actually like to have in my collection. The problem with these guitars, in most of the cases, they end up in an attic with not proper humidity and temperature conditions, and so not a lot of them survive up to the day. For example, this guitar, I want to play the most important part in my studio session, and this guitar is in the worst shape. After I made an interview with Johnny, he told me a couple of things off camera, and they have pretty good point. He told me why wouldn't he try to fix this guitar. Well, he showed me a couple of things that are wrong with this guitar. For example, you grab the string on the first fret, and it sounds the way it would sound on the third fret. And that's because the third fret is much higher than the first fret, and this goes all over the neck. So fixing this kind of thing would probably cost much more than this guitar is worth. And that's the good point, and I don't want to break the bank, and I'll try to fix it myself the best way I can. So it's actually playable. But there was some point that Johnny missed. And I guess he doesn't have kind of luthier skills. And there are a lot of videos in YouTube that are mentioning one and the same thing. But I guess I can mention it as well, so maybe it will be helpful for you. If you take a look, there are only 3 strings attached, and 2 of them are nylon strings. First of all, I don't think that this guitar was designed to be played with nylon strings. So what's the problem with that? Take a look at this piece of paper, and let's imagine that this is our neck. If you attach strings here, they create tension so that neck is actually goes in this way. It is sort of bowed in this way. To compensate this, you have to create some sort of tension in this direction. So without the strings, the neck should be sort of this bowed in this direction. And if you attach the strings, neck goes straight. This is pretty simple physics. So the less strings you attach, the less tension it creates. And it, especially with the nylon string, they have much lower tension than the metal strings. So it's probably that there is nothing wrong with this guitar, but rather without the whole set of strings, it has some sort of back bow, and that's why if you grab the string on the first fret, it lays on some higher fret. If you eliminate this thing, it will be in no order. So what I have to do is simply attach the strings. But before I attach it, I want to show one thing what is really wrong with this guitar. This guitar has so-called 0 fret. And this was pretty common thing for the East European guitars, especially Czechoslovakian and East German guitars. Maybe this kind of thing was made back in the 60s with much more guitars, but I haven't met a lot of guitars with 0 fret that weren't made in East Europe. So, what this is all about? Usually, the nut is the sort of 0 fret. And on this guitar, the nut is here and 0 fret is here. And what's the problem with this? If you have 0 fret, the strings should go through the nut and they should lay on this 0 fret. And if you take a look at this guitar, the nut is higher, so the strings actually don't touch the 0 fret. This nut looks kind of original, but it's set the wrong way. I guess the previous owner wanted to fix this guitar by himself and he missed that point. So actually the strings are lying above the 0 fret, and that's what creates the problem. So let's try to fix it. So I put the strings on it and discovered the first problem. The neck was off and previous owner tried to fix it by himself, and he glued this neck to the body under the wrong angle. So the strings were actually touching the fingerboard. And to raise them, he simply made a different nut that raised the strings, but he totally ignored the 0 fret. So right now I'm trying to grab the capo and try to lower the strings so that they would actually lie down on the 0 fret. So if you do it the proper way, so that the string actually touch the 0 fret, the strings would lie so low that they would actually touch the fingerboard. You can easily fix this if you raise this saddle. I cut the slots of the nut up to the bottom so that strings actually lie on the 0 fret, and so far I like the result. Well, this guitar sounds pretty nice. It has some sort of smooth jazzy sound and I really like it. The string action is too low, so to raise the action of the strings I should raise this saddle. Well, I'll try it just for the test. I put a piece of cardboard underneath of it. So to do this, you should actually lower the tension of the strings, because other way you might break either the strings or the nut, or you can damage the guitar. So and that's what actually I suggest if you try to set the intonation of the strings before you screw around your guitar saddles. You should always lower the string tension. Well, I really like the results I've got. This is much better than I have expected. Well, I have to replace this nut somehow. Either I glue a piece of wood underneath of this saddle, or maybe I just order another one. I'll try to look if there is some cheap saddle for this kind of jazz guitar type. So anyway, there is one minor problem. Some of the frets are out of the fingerboard. They are slightly above. For example, this somewhere, the 11th fret. It's just got out, and the same thing is with this fret. Well, the best way to avoid this, you should refret this guitar, but this kind of expensive issue. So for this type I can do some unorthodox thing. Just grab a hammer and hammer those frets down. But if you don't want to damage the frets, you either grab the rubber hammer that I don't have, or you grab a piece of wood. So you put it like this on the fret that is out, and you just hammer it down. Well, this kind of seems to work. Maybe I refret this guitar one day, but just keep in mind one thing: don't do this kind of hammer technique on some expensive guitars. If this cannot be fixed, this is not a kind of problem. This was only 30 euro. And this would be sad if you damage your expensive guitar. Anyway, this guitar is kind of ready to be used in studio. Maybe I do a couple of different things with it. So stay tuned for the news. Have a nice day and keep on rocking.